In this video, we'll talk about the perfect 3 weeks New Zealand motorhome itinerary for the North and South Island. You'll get those essential travel details you must know about before start planning your trip, like where are the best locations to visit, how to include iconic sites and tours into your overall itinerary. To make things easier, we'll also provide you with a 3-week New Zealand motorhome itinerary template. My name is Michael. Let's get started. My number one travel tip for you is not to start traveling with a motorhome immediately after a long-haul flight. Most accidents happen in the first 24 hours as you will be tired. Also, many Northern Hemisphere drivers will need to adjust to driving on the left-hand side of the road too. Most travelers will arrive in Auckland. It's best for you to get a transfer from the airport to the city and stay in a hotel for a night or two. This will also help you get over the jet lag. One fact is often forgotten. Motorhomes and campervan prices are calculated by rental days, unlike rental cars, which are calculated by 24-hour cycles. Like you arrive at 2 p.m. in the afternoon and you will be charged for the full day with a motorhome. You rather spend the money on a hotel and start refreshed the next morning. Often this will actually cost less too. Right, let's get into the nitty-gritty and start with locations and the travel route. There are 3 main depot locations in New Zealand for motorhomes and campervans. Those are Auckland, Christchurch and Queenstown. Let's assume you will start your itinerary from Auckland and go through a visual travel route overview with key locations next. By the way, find a link to this page in the description box below. After vehicle pickup, you have 2 nights in the Coromentals, 1 night in Waitomo, 2 nights in Rotorua, 2 nights Hawke's Bay, Napier, 1 night outside Auckland, then take a ferry over to the South Island. Then you have 2 nights in the Nelson Tasman region, 1 night in Punakaiki, 1 night in Franz Joseph, 2 nights in Wanaka, 2 nights in Tiana, 1 night in Alexandra and 2 nights in the Mount Cook National Park and the last night in Christchurch. Stay tuned folks, very shortly I will go through each individual day of the itinerary and make key suggestions and provide some insider tips to you. Also keep in mind that with campervans and motorhomes there are far more policies and surcharges than with a rental car. If you want to find out more about types of vehicles, rental policies and costs, check out my motorhome camper video up here. It's also linked in the description box below. Right, now that we have some of the basics out of the way, let's dive into the fun part with locations, routes and things to do along the way. So let's have a look at the North Island map and go step by step through the itinerary for the North Island. So you would pick up the motorhome or campervan here in Auckland. The process takes around about an hour or so. You need to calculate, so it's a little bit longer than with a rental car. And then you would travel south on State Highway 1 and you could either go directly to the Coromentals. My suggestion, if you have a bit of time, go through Clifton and 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 Bay. It's a much more scenic route and you can really enjoy the first part of your New Zealand trip going through some stunning rolling hills. Then you have a couple of nights here in the Coromandel Peninsula. I would recommend you base yourself here on the eastern side. I've done another video on the Coromandel, so there's lots you can dig into and explore 𝗪𝗪 and Cathedral Cove and Hot Water Beach, etc. from here. The next day you would be traveling down south and my recommendation is actually to head first to Waitomo Caves. So you could have a number of stops along the way, like in Hamilton. Hamilton Gardens are quite popular and famous. And there's also, if you want to do that in Matamata here, there are the Hobbiton tours. So you could do Hobbiton Village. You need to pre-book that, but these are just options. Cambridge is a lovely village as well. I suggest there to stop. And Otorohanga is famous for the kiwi birdhouse, so that's maybe an option for you. But I suggest to stay in Waitomo village. It's a very tiny village, but they actually have a lovely top 10 holiday park and explore that area. There's a number of caving tours to do. There's a number of walks to do. Again, I've done a separate video on that. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button below to stay in touch for more helpful travel videos to come. Also, you can download the detailed itinerary planning sheet as well as the Google spreadsheet planner with the link in the description box below. After 𝗬𝗏𝗀𝗃, you head into the central part of the North Island, either through this one or what I actually suggest going further south here. This is a lovely drive going through 𝗪𝗏𝗃𝗀𝗃. I've done that many times in my days as a tour guide and come from the southern end into Rotorua. Again, have yourself based here for a couple of nights. There's lots to see: geysers, thermal sites, Mary culture, heaps to do. I've done another video on that as well, so please check out my playlist in the description box below. So after 2 nights in Rotorua, head south on SH5, and there are a number of sites you might be interested in to check out. So there's Waiotapu, there's Waimangu Valley. You have, these are thermal sites with geysers, with hot pools, mud pools, etc, etc. There's the Hooker Falls. So it's only about 1.5 hour drive, but there are numerous stops here in between Rotorua and Taupo. So with this itinerary, I have you continuing to the eastern side, to the Hawke's Bay, Napier Hawke's Bay. This is like any region in New Zealand, they all have their own distinct character. The Hawke's Bay is a very warm area, is famous for its fruit industry, for the wine industry. There are some of the oldest vineyards like Mission Bay here in New Zealand. You could either stay in Napier, which is also Art Deco city. It's famous for Art Deco, so that's something you could consider, or in Hastings or Havelock North. Now, often people ask me or tell me I want to do the Tongariro National Park, which is located right in the center of the North Island with the famous volcanoes. So if you're into hiking, then you could change the eastern side of the North Island with a central North Island side. So instead of 2 nights Napier, Hastings, you would actually stay here for 2 nights in the Tongariro National Park. So there are options here. I probably would recommend National Park, the village of National Park. There are some camping grounds, or you could go down to Ohakune. If you do the Tongariro crossing, you would leave your van or your motorhome at the park, get picked up in the morning, get a transfer from the eastern side into the Tongariro area, and walk through to the northern side here to the Kitatai car park and get a transfer back. So you need to arrange all that. So in any case, you would continue traveling south. If you do the Tongariro National Park, you continue on SH1 into the Wellington region. You wouldn't go directly into Wellington, but you would go into a place called Lower Hutt, and there is a campground for you to stay for 1 night. If you go through the Hawke's Bay area instead, you want to come through here, Carterton, Masterton. These are lovely places to stop by and then roll into the Lower Hutt, Wellington region. Stay for 1 night, and the next morning you take the ferry, which goes directly from Wellington downtown into the northern part of the South Island. You go through the Queen Charlotte Channel, the Marlborough Sounds, and you would arrive here in Picton and continue your journey on the South Island. And then you would continue driving to the Nelson Tasman region. In general, the driving times with the motorhome will be longer than with a rental car. You also need to keep in mind that the Google Maps are often underestimating the driving time, so be aware of that. My suggestion here for the next couple of nights would be to stay up here in the 𝗪𝗪𝗆 Tasman region. Here's the 𝗪𝗪𝗆 Tasman National Park. Stay at 𝗪𝗪𝗆𝗃 Beach. It's right at the park, and you can actually go in with boats. You can go hiking, you can go kayaking, so there's lots to do. Then from the Nelson Tasman region, you would carry on south with the motorhome, go through 𝗪𝗺𝗃𝗃, and you go through the Buller Gorge, so it gets a bit windy here, as you can see. And yeah, then you come over to the west coast. In any case, what I really want you to have a stop at is 𝗪𝗆𝗆𝗆. It's here on this side. 𝗪𝗆𝗆𝗆 is a seal colony, lovely place. You can stretch your legs and, you know, stay there for half an hour or an hour before you continue traveling south towards 𝗺𝗃𝗃𝗃. And 𝗺𝗃𝗃𝗃 is directly located. There's a lovely dock campground. You can park for one night. Keep in mind there is no petrol station. There's also no supermarket, so you need to be prepared for that. And you can tank up here in Westport. That's an option. Okay, then you continue traveling south along the way, stops along the way again. I've done numerous videos on that drive between Westport, 𝗺𝗃𝗃𝗃, 𝗺𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, Franz Josef, so there's lots to discover. But you would spend your next night in Franz Josef, and now you need to tank up again because there's not much petrol, and also it's only one little village here in Haast where you can get some food or cafe, so be aware of that. But this is one of the most stunning drives, and you get from the west coast over the Haast Pass, which is here the Southern Alps, which is basically a natural barrier between the western side of the South Island and the eastern side. So west coast is wet and the east coast is dry, so you have a radical change in landscape when you come into the Otago region. My suggestion is here to spend a couple of nights in Wanaka. Lovely place, directly located on Lake Wanaka. Again, I've done a video on that. Check out my playlists below. The next day you can continue through Queenstown. It's only a good hour's drive with a motorhome. Check out Queenstown in the morning before continuing traveling south and finishing up for the night in Te Anau. Te Anau is the hiking capital of New Zealand. It's located in that huge Fiordland National Park, which is here is 1.3 million hectares. And it's a beautiful place. We have 14 fjords here. The most popular one is Milford Sound up here. There's another one here, 𝗪𝗆𝗆𝗃𝗃 Sound on the western side. My suggestion is to leave your motorhome, stay put that day and go on a guided tour with operator like Trips and Tramps. Do the Milford Sound cruise, do some hikes along the way, but it's nice not to drive for a day. Now we continue this trip heading back basically, but now we're going through the central Otago region and have the next night at Alexandra, which is again a totally different region. It's very famous again for the fruit industry, stone fruit, so apricots, cherries, etc. Then you're heading over Lindy's Pass and you go into the Mount Cook National Park area, also Lake 𝗺𝗃𝗃𝗃 and Lake 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. I suggest to have 2 nights at Glentana Park, which is located really close by to the Mount Cook National Park. You often have, can be a little bit of a problem in respect of weather conditions. Like if it's beautiful like this here, a day like this is just stunning, but it could also be bad weather. So it's actually quite good to stay a little bit further out. Glentana is located on this beautiful lake, Lake 𝗺𝗃𝗃𝗃, and it would be your base for 2 nights. After this, travel towards Christchurch, and again you can have a stop at Lake 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. There's some stargazing opportunities, there's some sites you might want to check out, and if you're a bit of in a rush, you could go back through the main highway, State Highway 1, or what I suggest is actually going through that scenic drive through the Rakaya area. This is the Rakaya River. This is beautiful. I've done another video on that. Like, please check out all my videos. It's so many of them, but it's important for you to understand what options you have. And then you must drop back your motorhome in the afternoon, like 4 or 5 o'clock here. The depot is near the airport. then get a transfer into the city Christchurch and have another night or two. You could easily also extend it, maybe get another rental car and go further north, go to the Aotearoa Peninsula or go to Kaikoura here, Whale Watch. So there's plenty of things to do. If you have more time, it's all about time really. So now you have a good overview for this 3 weeks New Zealand motorhome itinerary, North and South Island. I know there's a lot to take in here, folks. Therefore, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the comments box below and I will answer them for you. In any case, you must check out my operator and vehicles video up here to be fully aware of vehicle options, policies and costs. Thanks very much for watching. See you in the next video.